All right, photog editor friends, Andrew Gerard back again. This is a shot from a recent fashion shoot I did. I'll show you a couple of shots from here. The feature here is this outfit. There was a couple of things you can see along the bottom of the shorts. There's like a little space of the shadow, the silhouette from the shorts that are underneath this. The only thing I've done to this image is to take that away and kind of retouch this a little bit. And I cleaned up a couple of hairs around her hairline. Other than that, I want to do a very quick edit and show you a couple of the tips and tricks that I do along the way in an edit like this. First of all, Command J, and we're going to start off by selecting out just her face here, and anywhere we see skin in the upper part. We'll deal with the legs separately. And I'm going to go to my filters. I'm going to use the retouch for me here. We're going to start off with heel. And heel is just going to go in. It's set to auto. And if I just touch the sensitivity slider, you'll see exactly where it's healed, all those little spots. You know, and I should show you, if I back this off, it's going to take away less and less of them, starting with the most prominent ones and then getting into spots. I leave it up to 100%, especially when I'm doing kind of fashion like this, because you know, as much as nobody's perfect, that's kind of the expected look still in the industry. And I'm going to go in using the same selection here on the same layer. I'm going to do a dodge and burn. Dodge and burn, if you haven't used Retouch for me, but you have used dodge and burn, this is incredibly detailed. This dodge and burn is done with the opacity at so many different layers. It's really quite remarkable. And it's something that I wouldn't have done normally on my own. And I've been retouching for over 10 years, but to this amount of detail, I mean, it's a lot of work what this does. And right now I'm just going to put it up to 200% here, or 200, just so I can show you the original before and after. And I'm going to try and show you the preview kind of so that you can see what's being done. So those are, if you see where the green and yellow is, that is obviously the most highlighted area, and then dark down to the blue and purple. And you can see now before and after the levels that has done is just remarkable. I mean, that's, you know, different opacity and different pressure sensitivity even in amongst the hair and stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. And then there's this warmth slider. If I did want to introduce more warmth into areas like her cheek where maybe you would have lost some warmth or from the retouching, I don't think I've lost that much. I'm going to leave it at 28 and I'm going to press apply. So Command D to deselect. I'll zoom in here so you guys can kind of see some good before and after. But I mean, wow, just 2 clicks in Retouch for me. And to be honest, I could be finished with this quite easily. Like, that's it. But I do want to show you a couple more. So I'm going to just select out her eyes here. And we're going to go through in the Retouch for me using Eye Brilliance. Eye Brilliance is just kind of exactly what it says. And I don't know how well that this is showing up on YouTube. I'll hit the original before and after, before, after. It's just popping the contrast of her eyes. And because she's a model with brown eyes wearing blue contacts, I really want to make sure that this, I'll Command D to deselect, that this shows through. So if I come in here a little tighter, hopefully you can see this. Before, after, before, after. So let's zoom back out, Command 0. And now we're going to deal with the legs. I want to deal with the legs separately because sometimes when you're dealing with a big light modifier, on the right-hand side here, I had a giant, 7-foot parabolic blasting across to create this specific light. And then I did have a strip box on her right-hand side here, very dimly lit, just to pop up the edge of her face and whatnot. But the point is, when you're dealing with big modifiers even, you're going to get fall off, which means the legs are going to be just a little bit darker than the light on her face. As a matter of fact, let me just show you quickly. I'm going to create a new layer, take a bead from a brush. I'm going to sample the light here on her cheek and put it here. Oh, let me do that 100%, yeah. And then I'm going to sample the lightest part of her leg and put it beside it. You can see how much darker that is. Even on the brightest part of her leg here is still not as light as anywhere on her face, even the darkest part of her cheek. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that there's fall off that happens. And of course, when things get darker, they get more saturated. So I always like to deal with legs sometimes a little bit differently than the face. So I'm going to select out the legs. Once again, we're going to go into to retouch for me. I'm going to try heal just to see what happens. I don't think she really has any, yeah, so there's just a couple of little spots there. What the heck? Let's apply that. And keep in mind, I am a fashion photographer, so I'm shooting, professional models that really look good out of the gate, that don't need that much retouching. So depending upon who you're shooting, I'm going to go into dodge and burn on the same area, just on the legs here. And it's set to auto. Because technically this isn't a close-up shot of the face or a mid shot or a full body. So I like it to just detect itself, the skin and areas, and we'll see the before and after here. And I'm letting this run so you can see the real time. I'm editing this on a 13-inch M1 MacBook, not the X, just the M1. And this is the only thing I have open currently. I think Lightroom's open as well. So here we go. So original, before, so it's not, it is a heck of a lot. Look at this. If I hold that down, look at that. And I think personally that this is a little bit too much. So I'm going to back this probably down to about 100% there, because I still want to be able to see, the texture of her skin. And that's the great thing about Retouch for me, is it doesn't lose ever the skin texture. Let me back that down just a little more, guys, to 100. Fantastic. I'm going to press Command D. Now we've got kind of a nice thing going on. There is a little issue here. I mentioned the color before of her legs are a little bit more magenta than her face. Her face has the very slightest greenish tinge to it. That could be from the makeup. It could be from the luminosity of the light. So I'm going to just, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create Command J to create a new layer. And I'm going to go in and select the entire image. And I'm going to select skin tone. Now what Retouch for me does with the skin tone is it detects the skin and then will add in warmth and magenta into the skin to lose that greeniness. So what I'm going to do is just ignore her legs. I'm just looking at the face, and I'm going to go original, before, after. Let me zoom right in here so that you can see this. And this is original, before, after. Oh, my memory usage coming up. Before, after, before, after. I'm going to pump that up even a little more. And if I hold it down, you can see where it's working on her face there. And before, after, before, after. So that looks good to me. I'm going to press apply to this. And then all that I'm going to do is there's before, after. You can see on her legs the difference it's made as well. All I'm going to do is create a mask on this. B for brush. I'm going to get a brush just a little bit bigger here just to get her legs. And I'm going to put the opacity just down to about 25% and the flow down a little bit. And all I'm going to do is, with a black brush, just paint back a little bit on the highlight of her legs, and I'll show you here in a second what I'm doing. You can see before, after, before, after. If I option hold it, you'll be able to see kind of the area that it's doing. So right here. And I'm just going to brush that down very, very lightly so that we don't get that strong magenta in her legs. And I like that. So this is going to be tricky, but try and watch her face and then her legs. So look at her face now and see it before, and look at her face after. Now look at her legs before, legs after. You can see there's not that much of a difference in her legs, but I think that looks a heck of a lot better. I'm going to Command E to merge that down to my previous layer so that we can take a look at the entire image now, before, after. You can really see the tone of her skin balance out here from before, after, and even her hair, right? We really got rid of this, just that little tinge in the highlights. And the legs, before, after, not much change, like I said, just a little bit in the highlight layer. Last thing I'm going to do this, Command 0. I'm just going to get this image to pop. There's two ways I'd normally do this. One, with the curves. Obviously, our good old friend, the curves. Bring down the midpoint. I'm going to pop that up a little bit there. That looks pretty good to me. Before, after, before, after. I'm actually going to back that off a little bit, because what I want to do is show you before, after. And this curve is happening to the entire spectrum, the entire histogram, sorry. So it's affecting everything. We know that. I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to hit this layer, Command J, and I'm going to open up in Retouch for me my fave, portrait volumes. Now, portrait volumes is not going to affect the entire image. It's just going to darken the shadows, lighten the highlights, and kind of give it a 3D pop. understanding that this is a human face. So I don't know if you can see that. Let me go original, before, after. Let me pump it up a bit so that you can really see an over-exaggerated version, just so you can see, guys. So this will now be before, after. So it looks like it's painted on her legs, these highlights down the center, and same on her face. You see how it's carved it around? It's given her more of a 3D pop. I'm going to put this back at just about 100 or so before and I'm going to press apply. Now what we're going to do, guys, is take a look at the difference between the portrait volumes and the curves adjustment. Before, after. That's the curves, and this is the portrait volumes. Now what happens if we put the curve on top of the portrait volumes? You get magic. So I always do the curves to the entire image, and I can even back that down to about 50%. Just a pro tip, as a general rule, anything you do in retouching, always back it off to a 50%, and the odds are it looks better. So it took me a few years to learn that one. So there, before, after. And now with the curves adjustment, perfect. I'm going to press Shift Option Command E on a Mac to see our final. I can delete these layers now because we have our complete before and our complete after. And here's another tip. If you want a very natural looking edit, I think that this is pretty fair. You can always take your original edit, and here's your one, and just back off the opacity. You guys know this already. Back this off to about 50%. Before, after, and here it is at 100% before, after. Because of this shoot, I know how this image has to look for my work. I'm going to back this off just a little bit, maybe 90%, 86, 90%. Yeah, somewhere around there. Before, after. Yeah, that looks good to me. I'm going to Command E to merge that down, and that completes this retouch. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, and let me know in the comments if you use Retouch for me. It is my favorite retouching plugin, and the guys at Retouch for me do not pay me to do this video. This is my own opinion as a professional fashion portrait photographer. And but they did give me a code called Andrew Gerard 25. I'll leave a direct link to them if you want to try them for free, or pick up any of them, or use your favorite retouching. Whatever you do, these principles will apply to everything. This just speeds up your workflow, and I absolutely love them. So I will see you guys in the next one.